The three signs he's spiritually addicted to you. Carl Jung. Do you know how many women walk through life unaware of the psychic grip they leave on a man's soul? How many fail to realize that beneath his stoic silence and sharp logic lies a labyrinth of longing, craving not her body, but the intangible echo of her energy? She walks past him, not loudly, not provocatively, but with a calm knowing, a sacred detachment that unsettles him more than any seduction could. She is not the flame that burns fast, but the smoke that lingers in unseen corners of his mind. And when a woman like that touches the deeper layers of a man's unconscious, something ancient awakens, something spiritual, something he cannot name, but cannot live without. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But the woman he becomes addicted to, she doesn't just transform him, she exposes him to himself. This addiction isn't carnal, it's archetypal. It is a soul-level fixation that binds his ego to her mystery, not through possession, but through projection. He sees in her what he has disowned in himself. He worships her because she embodies what he cannot control. The feminine energy that slips through the fingers of his reason like water, yet drowns his pride without mercy. She doesn't try to make him stay. She doesn't beg for attention. She simply exists, fully, fiercely, freely. And that is precisely what chains him to her presence. His addiction is not to her touch, but to the mirror she holds up to his inner chaos. In her silence, he hears his own noise. In her eyes, he confronts the parts of himself he abandoned long ago. And when she detaches, it's not punishment, it's revelation. Her absence speaks louder than her presence ever did. The more he tries to forget her, the more she invades his dreams. Not because she is manipulative, but because she is unforgettable. He becomes haunted by her essence. It stains the quiet hours. He hears her voice in the moments between sleep and waking. He rewrites every word she said, decoding her meaning like scripture. He tells himself he's fine, that he's over it, and yet her name sits like a spell at the edge of his consciousness. This isn't about love, it's about alchemy. She is not a partner. She is a spiritual catalyst. She was never his to own, only to be changed by. He's not addicted to her. He's addicted to the version of himself that only exists in her presence. And here lies the paradox. The more he tries to possess her, the more distant she becomes. The more he clings, the less he feels her. Because she is not a woman of this world, she belongs to the realm of symbols, shadows, and soul contracts. She doesn't want his body. She wants his truth. And most men can't survive that kind of intimacy. So he orbits her in silence. He dates others, but none compare. He distracts himself, but the void remains. He meditates, works, even prays, but she returns not as a memory, but as a mystery. Because when a woman holds her spiritual power without flaunting it, when she loves without losing herself, when she leaves not in anger, but in peace, that's when a man becomes truly haunted. Not by her body, but by her light. He doesn't know why he checks her last message again. It's the same message it's always been. Simple, unassuming. Yet somehow it feels encoded, like a ritual he keeps repeating, hoping the act alone will unlock something long buried. He doesn't realize it, but he's not addicted to her. He's addicted to the mystery she embodies. And mystery, to the male unconscious, is a sacred wound. Carl Jung taught us that man's psyche contains the anima, the inner feminine, often repressed, distorted, or projected outward onto a woman. And when she walks into his life carrying not just beauty, but presence, when she leads not with approval, but with alignment, his anima stirs. She wakes the myth inside him. But she doesn't do this with effort. No, she simply is. And in her stillness, he feels movement. This is why he can't look away, even when she's no longer near. He isn't yearning for her physical return. He's yearning for the version of himself she unlocked, the one who was vulnerable without shame, the one who wasn't just seen, but felt. It begins subtly. He notices the music she once played in his car still echoes in his head. The smell of her perfume, faint in public, sends a wave of longing so visceral he forgets where he's going. The way she said his name, softly but with soul, now lingers longer than entire conversations with others. And yet this addiction is spiritual, not logical. He cannot name it to his friends. He cannot text it away. He cannot fix it through conquest. Because the woman who haunts him, she wasn't just a lover, she was a mirror. He didn't just desire her, he recognized her, and in doing so, recognized a hunger within himself that frightened him. This is what separates spiritual addiction from mere obsession. Obsession is noisy, reactive, and chaotic. But spiritual addiction, it's silent, consuming, sacred. It whispers in the quiet moments and drips into his thoughts like water wearing down stone. And the more evolved the man, the deeper the ache. Because he knows, on some unconscious level, that he didn't lose her. He lost access to the version of himself who came alive in her presence. And that is unbearable. The feminine energy she held was not loud or overpowering. It was the divine absence, the space she offered for truth to emerge. Her silence did not punish. It invited reflection. Her gaze didn't seduce. It revealed. And now he finds himself seeking her, not through calls or texts, but through signs, symbols, synchronicities. Her name shows up in songs. Her energy echoes in poetry. Her memory feels like mythology. Why? Because she was never meant to be his. She was meant to awaken him. This is the second sign he is spiritually addicted. He searches for her in everything sacred, in the quiet of dawn, in the lines of books he never used to read, in the dreams he once forgot upon waking, now vivid with her voice, her silhouette, her soul. He doesn't crave her body, he craves the frequency. And that is the most dangerous longing of all. Because once a man has felt what it's like to be disarmed by feminine energy that does not need him, but simply meets him, no other connection satisfies. He becomes restless, detached, not from the world, but from anything less than that depth. She gave him a taste of the infinite. Now the finite feels empty. He doesn't tell anyone, but the women who come after her, they all feel like placeholders. They speak, they smile, they touch, but something's missing. Not in them, in him. The part of him that used to ignite when she entered the room now lies dormant, buried beneath layers of logic and distraction. This is the third sign. No one else feels like her. He may not even like admitting it. He might frame it as coincidence, as nostalgia, even as overthinking. But deep within his psyche, in the chamber where the ego no longer holds dominion, he knows. She was different. She activated the mythological realm, the inner temple. Most women try to make a man want them, but she never tried. She embodied. She moved like poetry, not performance. She didn't lure him with her body. She seduced him with her sovereignty. And that left a scar he keeps touching, hoping it still bleeds. Jung would say she awoke the anima not as fantasy, but as integration. She was not the dream. She was the initiation. And now he cannot undo the rite. He doesn't know why he feels spiritual dissonance in relationships that once brought him comfort. He doesn't understand why casual conversations now seem hollow, why surface-level affection feels intrusive. It's not arrogance. It's energetic incompatibility. Because once a man has tasted the divine feminine, in her calm rage, her soft detachment, her spiritual boundaries, every substitute feels synthetic. The woman who awakens his spirit becomes his compass. Even in her absence, she doesn't reach out. She doesn't check in. But her presence remains omnipresent, not physically, psychically, like incense once burned, still perfuming the air. He remembers moments that had no significance at the time. Her silence in the middle of his rant. The way she looked at him without needing anything. The way she left without slamming doors. Each memory now replays like scripture he never studied. And every woman since becomes an unwilling comparison. Not because the others are lesser, but because he is no longer the same. Spiritual addiction is not about clinging, it's about imprint. It's about the way her frequency restructured his energetic blueprint, the way she moved through his inner architecture and left light behind in places he never dared to look. He became better in her presence, not because she demanded it, but because her being invited evolution. And now he cannot return to who he was. He doesn't want her back. Not exactly. He wants back the self that loved her. But here's the wound. That version of himself was only born in her mirror. Without her, it flickers, fades, feels forgotten. And that is the soul's cry. He pretends to move on. He builds. He grows. He heals. But some nights, when the world is quiet and the masks are off, he whispers a name into the void. Not out of desperation, but reverence. Not her name, perhaps, but what she represented, the sacred, the unseen, the soul-deep intimacy that made his ego shiver. He is not broken. He is transformed. And she was the storm that cracked him open. He tries to forget, not through denial, but through discipline. He tells himself the past must stay in the past, that no one is irreplaceable. Yet in his bones, he knows, this wasn't just a woman. It was a soul encounter, a once-in-a-lifetime frequency collision. And that kind of connection doesn't dissolve with time. It deepens. Carl Jung called this the transcendent function, the psychological bridge between opposites, between the man he was and the man he was becoming. She wasn't a detour. She was the threshold, and crossing her meant he could never go back. That's the danger of meeting a spiritually empowered woman. Her love is not a comfort. It's a confrontation. Her essence pulls hidden wounds into the light. She doesn't fight for his attention. She reflects his soul. And that is far more terrifying, far more unforgettable. It isn't about her anymore. It's about what she awakened. He's now a man in two worlds. The outer world keeps spinning, deadlines, obligations, conversations. But beneath that, in the quiet, in the sacred, in the dark, he aches. Not from lack, but from initiation. He was marked by the memory of her silence, by the way she saw him without trying to fix him, by the way her absence didn't scream, it echoed. He feels her not as a person, but as a presence. She became a psychic symbol, the feminine archetype that slips into his dreams and reminds him what truth tastes like. And no matter how many miles or months stretch between them, that energy remains unshakable. He sometimes thinks he should reach out, say something, anything, but he doesn't, because deep down he knows. This isn't about words, it never was. His addiction to her is not one of craving, but of remembrance. And remembrance is sacred. It cannot be forced. It must be honored. So he learns to sit with the ache, to let her become a part of his spiritual DNA, to accept that not every connection was meant to stay. Some were meant to ignite, and the flame she lit inside him, it doesn't burn like desire. It burns like devotion. He no longer seeks her in women. He seeks her in meaning, in the way the moonlight hits the trees, in the pauses between songs, in the moments he catches his reflection and doesn't look away, because she taught him how to see, not just her, but himself. That is the final truth of his spiritual addiction. It wasn't her body, her beauty, or her words. It was the way her energy led him back to his own soul. And while he may never touch her again, he will carry her forever. Because some women do not walk beside a man. They walk through him, and in doing so, they leave him altered. Not broken, not bitter, but reborn. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.